Before the story begins, take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let your shoulders relax. Feel the softness beneath you, whether it's your bed, your pillow, or a warm blanket tucked around you. Let your eyelids grow heavy. You are safe here. You are warm, and somewhere far away, across a quiet ocean, a lighthouse is waiting to tell you a story. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a sleepy coastline. The air smells faintly of salt and lavender carried by the wind. Gentle waves roll in and out, sighing against the smooth stones, whispering secrets that only the sea and the stars can understand. It's twilight, the sky, a soft indigo melting into shades of rose and gold. The first stars blink awake above you, like shy eyes peeking from behind clouds. And in the distance, on a rocky outcrop, shaped like the curved back of a whale, stands the lighthouse. It's not an ordinary lighthouse. It glows with a light that doesn't just shine, it breathes. It pulses gently, as if it has a heartbeat of its own, keeping rhythm with the ocean's tides. As you walk along the soft sand toward it, you notice the path glowing faintly under your feet. Each step lights up for a few seconds, before fading like walking on starlight. The sea hums low and friendly beside you. You can almost hear it speaking. Hurry along. The storyteller is waiting. The lighthouse grows taller as you approach. Its sides are painted a creamy white, and its windows shimmer with golden warmth. Around the base, small glass lanterns sway from shepherd hooks, each one holding a single candle that dances with the evening wind. When you reach the wooden door, it creaks open on its own as if it already knows you. Inside, everything smells faintly of old books, salt, and something sweet like vanilla and honey tea. The light is soft and amber, spilling from lamps with wide shades shaped like shells. A gentle hum fills the air, not quite music, not quite a voice. And then you see her, sitting in a large armchair by the round window, is the lighthouse keeper. Her hair is silver like sea foam, her sweater the color of driftwood. She smiles when she sees you, her eyes kind and deep like the ocean itself. "Ah," she says softly, her voice slow and melodic. "You've come at last. The tide told me you would." You feel a warmth spread through your chest, as if the light of the lighthouse is glowing inside you now. The room is circular, lined with books from floor to ceiling. Their spines glimmer faintly, each labeled with titles like "The Night the Moon Forgot to Sleep," "The Seagull Who Collected Stars," "Letters from the Deep," and "The Whale Who Dreamed of Clouds." In the middle of the room is a round table. Upon it sits a teapot made of porcelain the color of morning fog, and two mugs, one already steaming, waiting for you. The lighthouse keeper gestures to it. "Chamomile and sea lavender," she says. "It helps the waves fall asleep. And you too, perhaps." You sit down across from her, the chair soft and perfectly fitted to your shape. Outside, the waves murmur like a lullaby. The keeper pours you tea, and for a while, the two of you sit quietly, watching the horizon darken into velvet blue. Far below, the ocean begins to glow faintly, not from the lighthouse's beam, but from something deeper. The sea seems to be waiting. "Every night," the keeper says at last, "I read a story to the sea. It listens, though it pretends not to. Some nights, it hums along. Other nights, it rocks itself gently against the rocks until the tale is done." She smiles. "Would you like to help me tonight?" You nod. The keeper reaches for one of the books. Its cover is bound in soft blue leather, and embossed on it, in silvery letters, are the words, "The Beginning of the Whispering Waves." She opens the book, and a small breeze stirs through the room, carrying with it the faint scent of tides and dreams. Once upon a time, she begins, before the sea knew how to sleep, it tossed and turned restlessly every night. It envied the mountains, who slumbered so deeply that snow piled upon their shoulders. It envied the forests, who sang themselves to rest with the voices of owls and crickets. But the sea, had no one to tell its stories. You sip your tea and listen, feeling the warmth settle through your chest. The story flows like the tide, gentle and endless. The keeper's voice is a melody that wraps around you, the same rhythm as your slowing heartbeat. As she speaks, the light from the lighthouse begins to pulse in time with her words, each sentence sending a soft beam of gold out across the waves. In the distance, the sea seems to shimmer with each glow, as though responding in kind. You close your eyes for a moment. The rhythm of her voice, the hush of the ocean, the glow of the lanterns, they blend together into something peaceful and endless. And as the story drifts toward its pause, you realize that the sea has grown still. The waves move slowly now, like breathing in sleep. The keeper closes the book gently and smiles. There, she whispers, the first tale of the night. The sea is calmer already. You look out the window. The ocean glows faintly gold beneath the moonlight, as if dreaming already. The lighthouse keeper stands, gathering another book into her arms. Tomorrow, we'll tell it another, but for tonight, let's rest with it. You follow her up a spiral staircase lined with seashells that glow softly like lanterns. Each step creaks just enough to sound comforting, familiar, homelike. At the top, there's a round room with a window facing the open sea and a small bed tucked beneath it. The sheets are cool and crisp, smelling of linen and sunlight. The pillow feels as if it remembers your head. You lie down, the hum of the sea below and the steady rhythm of the lighthouse light above, syncing perfectly with your slow, calm breathing. The keeper hums softly, an old sea lullaby without words. The beam of the lighthouse sweeps across your face one last time, and then darkness. The sea sighs. You sigh. Everything is quiet, and the lighthouse keeps reading, softly, to the sea and to you. You wake not suddenly, not sharply, but gently. It feels like drifting from one dream into another. Soft morning light filters through the round window beside your bed. The waves outside are calm, the air humming faintly with the rhythm of the lighthouse beacon turning slow and steady. A few seagulls call lazily, their cries distant, muffled by mist. You stretch beneath the linen sheets, the fabric cool and smooth against your skin. The scent of salt and tea leaves lingers in the air, mingling with the faint sweetness of something baking far below. You remember last night, the lighthouse keeper's voice, the story about the sea that couldn't sleep, the light that pulsed in time with her words. It all feels both real and dreamlike, like a bedtime story you stepped into by accident and never quite left. When you rise, the wooden floor creaks softly beneath your feet. The lighthouse feels alive in a way that buildings rarely do, breathing, listening, watching over you. You follow the scent of freshly baked bread down the spiral staircase, the handrail warm beneath your fingertips. The keeper is already awake, of course. She's standing by a round window in the kitchen, slicing a loaf of honey oat bread. The kettle hums on the stove, steam curling up like silver ribbons. "Good morning," she says without turning. "You slept well. The sea did too. It's been quiet all night." You nod, smiling sleepily. "It was peaceful," you say, your voice soft from rest. The keeper places 2 slices of bread on a small ceramic plate, then adds a bowl of sea blue jam that glows faintly, like bottled moonlight. Blueberry and starfruit, she says with a wink. The stars share a few fruits with us every dawn, if we ask politely. You sit at the small wooden table while she pours 2 mugs of tea, steam curling around your face like a friendly spirit. The tea tastes of herbs and warmth, something between chamomile and dreams. As you eat, the waves outside lap gently against the rocks. It feels as though the whole world is in no hurry today. After breakfast, the keeper gestures toward a narrow wooden door at the back of the room. Would you like to see the rest of the lighthouse? She asks. You follow her, curiosity glowing softly inside you. Beyond the door lies a spiral staircase that descends rather than climbs. The air grows cooler, scented with parchment and faint traces of salt. The deeper you go, the softer the light becomes, shifting from gold to a tender shade of sea green. At the bottom is a small, round chamber. You stop and stare. It's filled entirely with books. Shelves curve around the walls like waves frozen in motion. Some books are bound in driftwood, others in leather that shimmers like fish scales. A few glow faintly, casting ripples of light across the room. In the center sits a small round pool, its surface perfectly still. The keeper kneels beside it, dipping her fingers into the water. The ripples spread outward, and faint words begin to appear across the surface, sentences written in light. This, she says quietly, is the library of the sea. You crouch beside her, watching in awe. The words drift like plankton, shimmering silver and blue. Every time I tell a story, the keeper continues, the sea listens, and every time it listens, it leaves behind a memory. The stories become waves, and the waves become words, and the words become these. She gestures to the books surrounding you. You trace a finger along one of the glowing spines. The title reads, The Dolphin Who Sang to the Moon. Another nearby says, The Tide That Learned to Paint. Do you read them all? You ask softly. She smiles. I try, but there are always more. The sea never stops dreaming. You notice then that each book hums faintly when you touch it, as if holding a heartbeat. The keeper rises, walking to a shelf near the far wall. She pulls out a slim, pale book that shines faintly like morning dew. Here, she says, handing it to you. This one was written last night, after we read to the sea. You open it carefully. Inside are pages of soft, shimmery text that seems to move, like light reflecting off ripples. The words describe you, your arrival, your footsteps on the glowing path, your voice joining the sea's song. You blink. It wrote this? The sea? The keeper nods. The sea remembers kindness. It remembers voices that soothe it. You run your hand over the words, feeling them hum faintly against your palm. The sensation is oddly comforting, like the heartbeat of the world itself. Would you like to add a story of your own? The keeper asks. You look at her in surprise. Me? Of course. The sea listens to everyone who speaks gently. You only have to whisper your story into the pool. You kneel by the water. Your reflection trembles softly in its depths. The keeper nods encouragingly. You think for a moment, then whisper slowly, carefully, about a memory that feels like calmness. Maybe it's the scent of rain on summer grass, or the hush of a library on a winter afternoon, or the sound of a loved one humming in another room. Whatever it is, the pool glows faintly as you speak. The light spirals downward like ink in clear water until it vanishes. When it fades, a new book appears on the nearest shelf, its spine still warm. You trace its cover and see your story's title, written there in faint silver letters, The Memory of Quiet Rain. You look up, the keeper's eyes twinkle. Beautiful, she says. The sea will like that one. She walks to the far wall, lighting a lantern shaped like a nautilus shell. The sea reads these stories during the day, she explains, while the sun watches over it, and when night comes again, it returns to us ready for the next bedtime tale. You sit quietly for a while longer, listening to the whispering shelves, the gentle creak of the lighthouse above, and the slow, contented rhythm of your breathing. Eventually, the keeper stands and brushes dust from her sweater. There's a room upstairs you haven't seen yet, she says softly. It's where the stories rest before they're told. You follow her back up the staircase, the light from the library fading behind you like a receding tide. The lighthouse hums faintly as you climb, and for a moment, you think you hear a low murmur rising from the sea outside. It's not just waves, it's voices. The sea, whispering the stories. It has already begun to dream, and as you reach the landing, the keeper opens another door. Beyond it lies a room filled with sunlight and paper birds, suspended mid-flight. Welcome, she says gently, to the room of unwritten stories. The door opens with a soft sigh, like the exhale of a sleeping creature. You step inside, and for a moment, you simply stand still. The room is filled with light, but not a sharp or glaring light. It's the kind that feels soft against your skin, warm as a late afternoon sunbeam after rain. The air smells faintly of old parchment and blooming jasmine. Everywhere you look, paper birds hang suspended in midair. Some flutter gently as though stirred by invisible breezes. Others glide in lazy circles above your head. Their wings are made of folded pages, each with tiny handwritten words upon them, sentences that shimmer faintly like ink made of moonlight. This, the lighthouse keeper says quietly, is where the stories wait before they're born. You watch a bird drift past, its wing edges glowing faintly as it circles a sunbeam. You can almost make out the words written on it, the cloud who forgot its shadow. Another flutters by with the words, the snail who counted the stars. You smile softly. They're so peaceful, you whisper. The keeper nods, her voice slow and kind. They are dreams that haven't been told yet. Every evening, I come here and listen. Some of them sing quietly, others sleep. The ones that are ready to be told will land upon the reading desk. You glance toward the center of the room. There stands a wide wooden table, smooth and circular, with a soft cloth spread across it. On the cloth rests a single, open book, its pages blank except for one faint line written across the top. Tonight's story belongs to the sea. A small feather quill floats nearby, its tip glimmering like starlight caught in silver. The lighthouse keeper steps forward, picking it up carefully. Every story begins here, she says, but the words don't come from me alone. They come from the sea, the wind, the stars, and sometimes from whoever happens to be listening. You blink, surprised. Me? Of course, she says with a soft laugh. Every guest leaves a piece of their heart in the stories. That's why they always feel familiar, even when you've never heard them before. You look around again, feeling a quiet awe. The paper birds rustle gently, their wings whispering against the air. Each sound feels like a sigh or a page turning in the distance. The keeper gestures to a chair by the window. Sit, she says. Let the sea speak through you for a while. You settle into the chair. The seat is perfectly shaped to your body, as though it remembers every guest who's ever rested there. Outside the window, the horizon stretches endlessly, a pale blue meeting of sky and water. The waves move slowly, each crest catching sunlight like liquid glass. The keeper begins to hum softly, the same wordless tune she sang the night before. The sound mingles with the sighing of the waves, with the distant cry of gulls. Slowly, you feel your thoughts drift not away, but deeper. It's as if the sea itself is breathing through you. Without realizing, you start to imagine something gentle, a picture forming in your mind's eye. You see a small island, hidden far across the ocean. On it stands a single tree whose branches shimmer with pearls instead of leaves. Beneath the tree, tiny shells hum lullabies to the tide. The story begins to unfold naturally, like mist lifting in the morning. You speak softly, the words emerging as if the sea is whispering them into your ear. Once upon a time, there was an island that only appeared when the world was calm enough to dream. On that island grew a tree whose roots touched both sand and starlight. The shells beneath it told stories to the waves, and the waves carried them away to the sleeping creatures of the deep. As you speak, the paper birds stir. One by one, they begin to glow faintly, circling slower. Listening, the keeper smiles quietly and writes your words onto the open page with the floating quill. The more you speak, the calmer everything becomes. Even the lighthouse seems to breathe in rhythm with your words. Outside, the waves slow their motion, and the air hums with gentle contentment. When your story comes to a natural pause, the last of the paper birds lands softly upon the table. Its wings fold neatly, and the glow fades into a steady, peaceful shimmer. The lighthouse keeper nods. "Beautifully done," she whispers. "The sea will love this one. It's patient tonight. It's been waiting for a calm story." You look at the book. The ink has already dried, shimmering faintly. The title appears on the page in small, perfect handwriting. "The Island That Appears When the World Sleeps." The keeper closes the book gently and ties a thin silver ribbon around it. "Tonight, when the stars rise, we'll read this aloud, but until then, it must rest." She places the book into a small wooden chest beside the table. You notice that inside the chest are dozens of other books, each bound in different colors of the sea: deep navy, pale turquoise, soft pearl, and green-gray like kelp. "They sleep here until the time is right," she explains. "Stories need rest too, otherwise they grow restless and wander away." You smile at that. "Stories can wander?" The keeper chuckles, eyes glimmering. "Oh, yes, you'll know it when one does. It starts appearing everywhere on the foam of the waves, in the shape of the clouds, in the way a gull turns its head. The sea tries to tell it even before we do." You imagine that a runaway story drifting through sea mist, whispering itself to dolphins and wind currents. The thought makes you smile. The keeper lights a lantern near the desk. Its glow is warm, gentle, the color of honey. "It's nearly midday," she says softly. "Would you like to see where the stories go when night falls?" You nod eagerly. She takes a small brass key from around her neck and tucks it into her pocket. "Then we'll go this evening," she says. "For now, it's time for a nap. Even the sea naps at noon." You laugh quietly, but the moment she says it, you realize how heavy your eyelids have become. The warmth of the light, the soft rhythm of her voice, the peace of the room, it all gathers around you like a blanket. The keeper gestures toward a wide cushioned window seat. "Lie there," she murmurs. Let the stories drift over you. You settle into the seat. The cushion molds to your shape, the sunlight wrapping you in its quiet glow. Outside, the ocean breathes slowly. Inside, the paper birds sway above you, their shadows like gentle wings across your face. The lighthouse keeper hums once more, the same melody as before, her voice threading through the air like silk. You close your eyes. You hear the ocean sigh. The lighthouse hums, and the stories whisper themselves into your dreams. You wake again, in the same quiet rhythm, no alarm, no urgency, just the gentle sound of water brushing against the rocks, the soft ticking of the lighthouse's old brass clock, and the distant hum of gulls gliding in lazy circles above the sea. Sunlight has shifted. It's late afternoon now, the kind of hour when the world feels half asleep, when the air seems golden and the shadows long and gentle. You sit up slowly, still half in a dream. The room of unwritten stories is peaceful, the paper birds now folded neatly along the window ledge, as if they, too, have taken a nap. The air carries a faint, sweet fragrance, like sea roses and something warm baking far below. As you stretch, the lighthouse keeper appears in the doorway. She's carrying a tray with 2 steaming mugs and a plate of biscuits shaped like tiny seashells. "Ah," she says, smiling, "you've woken right on time. The garden is awake too." You blink, still dreamy. "The garden?" She nods. "Come, you'll see." You follow her down another spiral staircase you hadn't noticed before, one that curves inward, deeper into the heart of the lighthouse. The steps are cool and damp, made of smooth stone, their edges glimmering faintly with moss. You expect it to grow darker as you descend, but instead the light grows softer. When you reach the bottom, you find a door made of frosted glass. The keeper presses her palm against it, and the glass blossoms with light. It opens with a sigh, releasing a breath of warm, fragrant air. Before you stretches the dreaming garden. It is not outside. It exists within the lighthouse, yet it feels as wide as the horizon. The ceiling is domed and translucent, letting the golden afternoon light spill through like honey. The air is thick with the perfume of herbs, sea lavender, mint, and something faintly sweet, perhaps drifting from the glowing flowers that bloom along the curved walls. A narrow stream runs through the center of the space, its water shimmering like melted glass. The sound of it is soft, rhythmic, like a lullaby that never ends. "Every story that we tell," the keeper says, her voice hushed, "plants a seed here. Each flower, each leaf, each ripple of water, born from a story once read to the sea." You look around, and it's true. The plants here don't look entirely ordinary. A cluster of coral-colored tulips sways, as if listening to distant music. A vine with silvery leaves curls upward, its tendrils forming the faint shape of letters. A small pool glows faintly blue, and when you look closer, you can see rippling words dancing just below its surface. You crouch down beside it and read the letters drifting in the water. "The whale who dreamed of clouds." You smile softly. "It's one of your stories," you whisper. The keeper nods. "They all live here after they're told. The sea gives them back to us in another form. Words turn to petals, sentences to ripples, and the endings, well, the endings bloom at dawn." She gestures toward a path winding through the garden, lined with soft moss and tiny bioluminescent mushrooms. "Come walk with me. The sea listens even here." You follow. The moss feels springy beneath your feet, cool but alive. The keeper moves slowly, her pace matching the rhythm of the waves far above. As you walk, she tells you the stories of some of the flowers. She points to a tall, slender stem crowned with translucent petals that shimmer pink and silver. That one came from a story about a lonely jellyfish, she says. It was afraid of the dark, so it carried its own light. The sea loved that story. It still glows whenever a wave misses the moon. You pause beside a cluster of white blossoms, shaped like tiny paper boats. And these? Ah, she says softly. Those were born from a child's story. One of my visitors long ago told the sea about folding dreams into boats and setting them afloat. The sea still remembers. You stand quietly, letting the atmosphere soak into you. The garden hums faintly, not like a song, but like a shared breath. Every plant, every shimmer, every sound seems to say the same thing: rest. At the far end of the garden, you find a bench carved from smooth driftwood, nestled beneath a flowering tree whose blossoms fall like slow silver snowflakes. The keeper sits and pats the spot beside her. You sit. The bench creaks softly, a friendly sound. From here, you can see the entire garden. The stream splits into two, winding like ribbons through the glowing greenery. The ceiling above shifts color as the sun lowers gold, turning to rose, rose to lavender. The lighthouse keeper hands you one of the mugs from her tray. Mint and honey, she says, for calmness. You take a sip. It's sweet and cool, grounding you gently in the moment. Do you ever get lonely here? You ask. The keeper smiles faintly. No, the sea is company enough. And besides, there are always stories and visitors like you. You tilt your head. Do many people come? She shakes her head slowly. Only those the tide invites. The lighthouse doesn't call to everyone, only to the ones who carry quiet hearts. You ponder that in silence, listening to the soft bubbling of the stream. Then the keeper says something you don't expect. Would you like to plant a story of your own? You blink. Plant a story? She smiles. Yes, every story you speak aloud becomes a seed here. You've already told one to the sea, remember? Now, tell one to the earth. She hands you a small vial filled with glittering dust, the color of moonlit sand. Whisper something gentle into it. A wish, a memory, a thought that feels peaceful. The garden will take care of the rest. You hold the vial close to your lips. The glass is warm, pulsing faintly, as if it's listening. You whisper a few quiet words, something simple and kind, perhaps about the feeling of soft rain on your hands, or the sound of someone laughing softly in another room. The dust stirs and glows faintly. The keeper takes it and pours it gently into the soil beneath the silver-blossomed tree. The earth hums faintly, and a tiny sprout pushes through the moss so small you might miss it if you blinked. Beautiful, she murmurs, the beginning of something peaceful. You sit together in silence, watching the garden breathe. The sky above deepens from lavender to indigo. The first star appears, just one, trembling softly against the dome of light. The keeper rises, her sweater catching the starlight. It's almost time, she says. The sea is waking. It's ready for tonight's story. She turns toward the spiral staircase, and you follow her, glancing back one last time. The sprout you planted shimmers faintly, its leaves glowing like tiny lanterns in the dusk. You smile, and as you leave the dreaming garden, the air behind you hums a lullaby made of earth and tide. By the time you and the lighthouse keeper reach the main chamber again, the world has changed. The sun has slipped below the horizon, leaving behind a band of rose fading into violet. The sea outside the window glows softly, as if holding on to the last traces of daylight, unwilling to let them go. The keeper moves quietly, lighting each of the small lanterns along the curved walls. Their golden light flickers gently, mingling with the blue shimmer drifting in from the ocean. Every night, she says, in a voice as smooth as the tide, the sea chooses when it wants to listen. It's polite that way. It waits for silence to settle both in the air and in the heart. You nod, watching the light shift and dance across her face. There's no rush here, no clock ticking you forward. Time itself feels drowsy, content to sway back and forth like a pendulum rocking in rhythm with the waves. The keeper crosses to the chest beside the reading desk, the same one where she placed your earlier story, the island that appears when the world sleeps. She lifts the lid, and a faint silver mist spills out, cool and fragrant, smelling of salt and starlight. She takes the book gently into her hands. The sea has chosen this one tonight, she says. You recognize it immediately. It's your story. For a moment, a hush fills the room so deep that even the waves seem to pause mid-breath. Then, softly, the lighthouse begins to hum, the same sound you heard the first night, only deeper now, resonating like a lullaby being tuned. The keeper gestures toward a cushioned chair beside her own. Sit with me. The sea loves to be read to by two voices. You take your seat. The book glows faintly between you, its edges shimmering with pale blue light. The air smells faintly of sea spray and something sweeter, perhaps the flowers from the dreaming garden carried upward by the wind. The keeper opens to the first page. The words within swirl briefly, rearranging themselves as if finding the right rhythm. Then they settle into neat, glowing lines. She begins to read, her voice soft and steady. Once upon a time, there was an island that only appeared when the world was calm enough to dream. Her tone is smooth as silk, each word drawn out like the slow turning of a page. After a few sentences, she nods toward you, inviting you to continue. Your voice feels quiet at first, but the moment you speak, the lighthouse responds. The beam of light above begins to rotate in perfect harmony with your words. Each time your voice rises, the light swells brighter. Each time you pause, it fades, sighing out across the sea. The waves begin to answer. You can hear it clearly now, the sound of water meeting rock, soft and rhythmic, almost as if the sea itself is murmuring along. You and the keeper take turns, page after page, your voices weaving together like threads in a tapestry. The story flows outward through the light, carried across the ocean surface, until it feels as though you're reading to the entire world. Outside the window, something begins to happen. At first, it's subtle, just a faint shimmer in the water. Then, slowly, shapes begin to appear beneath the surface, glowing outlines of fish, ribbons of color, like drifting ribbons of silk. The sea is responding. As the story continues, the ocean seems to dream with you. When the island in your tale begins to rise from the mist, you see a pale image of it forming out on the horizon, a suggestion of a silhouette, not quite real, but not entirely imaginary either. The waves calm completely, smooth as glass, and the reflection of the lighthouse beam stretches toward infinity. You glance at the keeper. Her eyes are half closed, her expression serene. "It's listening well tonight," she whispers. "You have a kind voice. The sea likes that." You smile faintly and read on, your voice blending with the hum of the lighthouse. The shells beneath the dreaming tree hummed softly, telling the waves to rest, and as they sang, the sea finally slept its great blue heart, as still as moonlight on glass. When you finish the final line, the light from the lighthouse fades slowly to a soft golden pulse. Outside, the reflection of the moon glows brighter than before, haloed by faint trails of silver mist. The sea has gone utterly still, its waves resting flat like folded silk. The keeper closes the book with a gentle thud. "There," she says quietly. "It's asleep." You look out the window. The world feels impossibly calm. Even the air is hushed, holding its breath. For a long time, neither of you speak. The silence isn't empty, it's full of peace, of presence, of a rhythm older than words. At last, the keeper rises. "The sea dreams now," she says, "and while it dreams, the stories change shape. By morning, this one will no longer be ours. It will belong to the water." You stand and help her carry the book back to the chest. When she sets it down, it no longer glows blue. It shimmers faintly green, like shallow tide pools under sunlight. You touch its cover gently. "Will it ever be told again? Not by us," she says with a smile, "but perhaps by a wave, or a shell, or the whisper of wind through a sailor's dream. Stories never vanish, they just find new mouths." Later that night, you climb to the top of the lighthouse. The air is cool, touched with sea mist. The beam of the lantern above you swings out in slow, majestic arcs, sweeping over the ocean's glistening surface. The lighthouse keeper stands beside you, her silver hair moving gently in the breeze. "Would you like to hear something?" she asks. You nod. She closes her eyes and listens. For a while, you hear nothing but the wind and the faint creak of the lantern turning. Then, slowly, you begin to hear it too, a whisper rising from the deep. It's the sea, murmuring back the story you just told. The words are different now, fragmented, stretched into sound, but you recognize the cadence. The sea is repeating your tale in its own language, telling it to the stars. The keeper smiles. It's saying thank you. You lean on the railing, eyes half closed, listening as the ocean hums. The sound is low and endless, like the heartbeat of the world itself. When you finally turn toward your bed, the night air feels soft as velvet. As you descend the stairs, you hear the faint chime of bells drifting from below, the gentle, echoing sound of the dreaming garden, singing in its sleep. The sea's listening hour has ended. Now it's your turn to rest. The next morning arrives like a whisper. The world is soft again, mist curling around the lighthouse windows, the sound of waves brushing gently against the rocks below. The light filtering through the curtains is pale and blue, like the sky still deciding whether it wants to wake up. You lie in bed for a while, listening to the rhythm of it all, the slow turning of the lighthouse lens above, the faint sigh of the sea beneath, the way the air hums faintly through the narrow corridor outside your room, carrying with it the scent of brine and something sweet like sugar and driftwood. When you rise, you find the keeper waiting in the kitchen. She's wearing a soft blue shawl today, embroidered with tiny silver threads that shimmer when she moves. On the table sits a breakfast of oat porridge, steaming mugs of tea, and slices of fruit that look like they might have come from dreams, rather than trees' soft lavender pears, and golden berries that glow faintly when touched. She looks up from her teacup and smiles. "Morning," she says. "The sea's still sleeping. It must have liked your story." You sit down opposite her, still half drowsy. "Does it always sleep so long?" "Only when it dreams deeply," she says. "When it dreams of calm things, You both eat in quiet companionship. The sound of spoons against porcelain, the rustle of pages from an open book on the counter, and the lazy hum of wind through the upper beams of the lighthouse. After breakfast, the keeper stands and ties her shawl more snugly. Today, she says, I'd like to show you the lantern room. It's the heart of the lighthouse, the part that speaks most clearly to the sky. You follow her up the winding staircase. The air grows lighter with every step, carrying a faint electric feeling, like the hush before a song begins. The walls narrow as you climb, until you reach a small round hatch. The keeper pushes it open, and the world expands. The lantern room feels like floating above the world. The floor beneath you is made of smooth glass that glows faintly with each footstep. The air here is cool but alive, the kind of cool that wakes your mind without disturbing your peace. The ceiling is open in a wide dome of crystal panes, allowing you to see everything the ocean spread out, like liquid silk below, the faint line of the horizon beyond, and clouds drifting lazily by, brushing almost close enough to touch. At the center of the room stands the great lantern. It isn't a single bulb, but a sphere of slow-turning light, layers of gold, pearl, and blue rotating within each other, like the heart of a star. You can hear it humming softly, a steady, resonant tone that you can feel in your chest as much as you can hear with your ears. The keeper places her hand on its surface. It brightens slightly, as if recognizing her. This is the voice of the lighthouse, she says quietly. It doesn't just warn ships. It listens. It remembers. It catches dreams as they pass above the sea. You move closer, watching the light swirl. Inside the lantern, shapes seem to appear and fade. Waves, clouds, faint silhouettes of creatures that might be whales or stars. The light seems alive. The keeper gestures for you to touch it. Go ahead, she says. It won't burn. It knows when someone comes with calmness in their heart. You reach out. The surface is warm and smooth, not like glass, but like sunlight made solid. The hum deepens as your fingers make contact. For a moment, you feel as though your pulse has joined with the rhythm of the lighthouse itself, your heartbeat sinking to the same slow music as the sea and sky. Images flicker in your mind, the island from your story, the glowing garden beneath the lighthouse, the silver-haired keeper smiling beside her teapot, all of them blending together, connected by threads of light that pulse like constellations. It's showing you its memories, she says softly. Every person who's ever told a story here leaves a piece of themselves in the lantern's light. It's how the lighthouse stays alive long after we're gone. You look closer, and indeed you see faint silhouettes of people turning pages, setting lanterns, laughing softly, all made of light. Are those the other keepers, you ask? She nods. Yes, and the guests who came before you. You stand there for a while, both of you watching the slow spin of the light. Each rotation sends a wave of warmth across the floor, and through the glass walls, you can see the beam of the lighthouse sweeping gently across the morning mist. After a while, the keeper speaks again. Would you like to see how the stories travel? You nod, and she smiles, walking to a small brass lever near the edge of the room. She pulls it gently, and the lantern's light shifts. The gold fades to silver. The hum grows higher, more melodic. The walls shimmer. The beam widens and begins to flicker, not like lightning, but like the turning of pages. You realize that the light is filled with words. They flow outward in every direction, faint glowing letters that drift into the clouds, each one carrying fragments of stories once told. You can read some of them as they pass. The dolphin who sang to the moon, the tide who painted the sky, the memory of quiet rain, your story. The sight makes your chest ache in a good way. The stories are alive, carried outward into the mist, to travel across the ocean where unseen creatures, faraway islands, and sleeping travelers might receive them like lullabies. The keeper closes her eyes and listens. Can you hear them? At first, you only hear wind, but then, faintly, beneath the sound of the sea, you hear whispering soft voices, hundreds of them, weaving through the air like threads of song. The stories never end, she murmurs. They circle the world and come back home with new words, new shapes. The sea collects them, and we tell them again. That's how the lighthouse stays full. You find yourself whispering, "It's beautiful." The keeper opens her eyes. "Yes," she says simply. "It's the oldest conversation there is between the earth that listens and the hearts that speak softly enough for it to hear." For a while, you stand in silence together, watching the light drift outward through the morning haze. Then, slowly, the beam begins to dim. The lantern settles back into its golden hum. The clouds part slightly, revealing the wide stretch of sea below, blue and endless. The keeper places a gentle hand on your shoulder. "Tonight," she says, "you'll help me light it again. When the moon rises, the lantern will want another story." You nod, feeling that quiet flutter of wonder again, the one that feels like home. As you descend the spiral stairs, the air cool and salt-sweet, you notice that the whole lighthouse seems to pulse faintly with the same golden rhythm. You realize it's breathing not in the way people do, but in the way places do when they're alive with stories. The keeper looks over her shoulder, smiling softly. "Rest a little," she says. "The sea is still dreaming, but the sky will need its bedtime story soon." You smile back, and as you reach your small, warm room once more, you glance out the round window toward the ocean. The waves gleam faintly in the afternoon light, as if still whispering your name in their sleep. You curl beneath the blanket, the lighthouse humming gently all around you, and just before you drift off again, you think you hear it, the faintest sound of your story being told back to the clouds. Evening arrives gently. It doesn't rush in. It drifts, the way twilight always does on quiet coastlines. The sky outside the lighthouse fades from pale gold to violet, and then to the deep navy blue of early night. The air hums faintly with salt and stillness. You wake from your afternoon rest to find the world bathed in silver. The lighthouse is quieter than before. No footsteps, no rustle of paper, only the slow pulse of the light above and the rhythmic breathing of the sea below. For a few long moments, you simply lie there, listening. The air feels thick with softness. When you finally rise, the window beside your bed glows faintly from the reflection of the moon, perfect and round, resting low above the water. When you step into the corridor, the keeper is waiting with a lantern. "Good evening," she says, in that calm, smiling voice of hers. "The sky's awake, and so are we. Tonight, I'll show you something special, the mirror tide." You follow her up a narrow staircase that winds around the outer curve of the lighthouse. The walls are cool and damp from the sea breeze, and through small round windows, you glimpse stars flickering like distant fires. At the top, she opens a door that leads not to the lantern room, but to a narrow balcony encircling the tower. The wind greets you instantly, cool and clean, carrying the sound of water moving below. The sight that meets you takes your breath. The entire sea looks like a sheet of glass. The waves are gone, utterly gone, as if someone pressed pause on the world. The reflection of the moon stretches from the horizon all the way to the rocks beneath the lighthouse, perfect and unbroken. The mirror tide, the keeper says softly, resting both hands on the rail. It only happens when the sea is completely at peace. The waves sleep so deeply that the surface becomes still enough to reflect the sky. You gaze down, and sure enough, the stars above are mirrored perfectly in the ocean below, as though you're standing between two skies. The lighthouse beam sweeps across them both, painting twin arcs of light in the air and water. You whisper, "It's beautiful." The keeper nods, her silver hair glowing in the lantern light. "It's more than beautiful," she says. "It's the sea's way of dreaming with its eyes open. It reflects everything. It loves the moon, the stars, even the people who care for it." You lean on the railing, watching the stillness. Somewhere deep in your chest, you can feel your heartbeat sinking again with the soft pulse of the light above. The air smells faintly of salt and night-blooming jasmine. The keeper lifts her lantern higher. The flame flickers once, twice, then steadies. "Would you like to hear a secret?" she asks. You nod. She smiles faintly. "Every reflection you see tonight is a story that has already been told. The sea keeps them safe, locked in its surface, when it's calm enough to remember. Look closely." You peer down again. At first, you see only the stars, but then, faintly, something else. Shapes begin to form in the reflection. The silhouette of the dreaming garden, glowing beneath the waves, a faint outline of the silver blossom tree, and even the soft shimmer of paper birds fluttering across an invisible sky. You recognize them all. They're reflections not just of the world above, but of the stories the sea has heard. It remembers everything, the keeper whispers. Every whisper, every tale, every voice that spoke with kindness. That's why the mirror tide is so precious, its memory made visible. You stay silent, eyes wide. The reflected stars seem to tremble and shift, and for a moment, you think you can see faint trails of writing drifting across the waterlines of words glowing and vanishing like ripples of light. The keeper points. "Look there, see the moving ones? Those are the stories still traveling. They haven't found their home yet." You watch the glowing lines drift toward the horizon, fading into the mist. It feels like watching a constellation being rewritten in real time. She continues softly. "Every night during the mirror tide, I read one of the reflections aloud so that the sea can hear its own memory and rest deeper. Tonight, I thought you might like to help me again." You smile. "Of course." The keeper opens a small leather-bound journal she carries, tucked beneath her arm. Inside, faint lines of silver text shimmer under the lantern glow. She runs a finger along one of the passages. "This is a very old one," she says. "It's called The Night the Sea Forgot to Reflect. Would you?" You take the book gently and begin to read. "Once, long ago, the sea forgot how to mirror the sky. It was too busy chasing storms and swallowing ships to remember the calmness that comes with stillness. The stars grew lonely, seeing no twin below, and the moon wept quietly into the dark. Your voice falls into rhythm with the pulse of the lighthouse beam. The keeper's lantern flickers brighter, and the reflection on the sea stirs faintly." You continue. "Then one night, a single wave stopped. It listened to the wind, to the quiet, to the hush of the sleeping world, and it realized the beauty of being still. One by one, the other waves followed, until the whole ocean became a mirror once more, and the stars smiled. As the words leave your mouth, something extraordinary happens. The sea itself glows softly, as though remembering the story. The reflection of the moon ripples slightly, then settles again, brighter than before. The keeper closes her eyes. It's listening. You finish the story quietly, the last line a whisper almost lost to the wind. Since then, whenever the sea grows restless, the moon sings it this story, and the waves remember how to rest again. The keeper closes the book slowly and tucks it back under her arm. There, she says, exhaling. Now the sea remembers again. You gaze out across the mirrored water. The reflection of the lighthouse beam sweeps one last time, bright and slow, and the mirrored sky below seems to sigh in contentment. The keeper lowers her lantern, and the world grows dimmer but not dark. The light from the sea itself remains, a quiet phosphorescent shimmer that pulses like a heartbeat. For a while, neither of you speak. The silence is full, rich, with the hum of the world resting. Then she says softly, "Tonight, you should sleep in the lantern room. It's the highest bed, and the stars are close enough to whisper to you. You'll see why this place is called the Lighthouse that reads to the sea." You nod, feeling warmth rise in your chest. You follow her down the steps, the lantern light painting gold ripples along the walls. Back in the main room, she gives you a knowing smile. "The sea will keep reflecting until dawn," she says. "So tonight, let it read you to sleep." Later, you lie beneath the great turning lantern, wrapped in a soft wool blanket. The light moves in slow arcs above you, painting the ceiling in liquid gold. Outside, the sea still glows a mirror, holding the dreams of the sky. You breathe deeply, your chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the light. The lighthouse hums around you, low and tender, as if it's speaking to you in its own language of warmth and sound. The stars twinkle, the waves sleep, the air tastes faintly of salt and tea. You close your eyes, and as the keeper's voice drifts faintly upward from below, reciting another story to the sea, you slip quietly into dreams of mirrored skies and glowing water. When you wake, it feels as though the world has exhaled. The air in the lantern room is cool and still, touched with the faint fragrance of salt and polished glass. Above you, the great lantern turns slowly, its golden light tracing lazy circles on the ceiling. Beyond the curved window panes, dawn is only just beginning to stretch its pale fingers across the horizon. The sea below no longer mirrors the sky. It moves gently again, small ripples forming and dissolving like the slow rhythm of breathing. But the reflection of the moon lingers faintly in the waves, as if unwilling to leave completely. You sit up, wrapping the blanket around your shoulders, and the lighthouse hums softly in greeting. It feels as though it knows you're awake, like an old friend watching over your rest. After a few quiet breaths, you rise and descend the spiral stairs. The floorboards creak tenderly beneath your bare feet, and the scent of breakfast floats upward, something warm and sweet, like toasted bread and honey. The keeper is already there, of course. She stands by the round window, gazing out at the soft, mist-wrapped ocean. A pot of porridge bubbles gently on the stove, and a steaming cup of tea waits for you on the table. "Morning," she says without turning. "You slept where the stars sleep. I can tell by your eyes." You laugh softly, rubbing your arms against the cool air. "I think I dreamed of the sea again." She nods. "That's how the stories speak to us. They find our dreams and make homes there." You both eat quietly, watching as the morning light melts the mist outside. The ocean seems endless again, the horizon softened by clouds. It feels like being inside the pause between two breaths. After a while, the keeper sets her cup down and looks at you with a thoughtful smile. "You've seen where the stories are born," she says. "You've read to the sea walked the garden where tales take root, and watched the world reflect itself. But there's one more place you must see before the cycle is complete. You tilt your head. Where? She gestures upward, to the very top of the lighthouse where the morning light glows through the beams. Above the lantern room, the stars' library. You didn't know there was a room above the lantern room. The keeper leads you up a narrow spiral staircase, hidden behind a small wooden door. The air grows thinner and cooler as you climb, until it almost feels weightless. Each step seems to echo, not against wood or stone, but through something softer, like mist or memory. When you reach the top, the keeper pushes open a hatch, and light spills in not the light of day, but something softer, silvery, endless. You step inside and gasp quietly. There is no ceiling here, only the open sky, filled with stars. You realize, with a kind of gentle wonder, that you're standing inside a dome made entirely of glass so clear that it seems invisible. The stars hang so close it feels like you could touch them, each one pulsing gently, some gold, some white, some tinged faintly blue. The air is completely still, and yet it hums faintly the same frequency as the lighthouse's heart, only higher, purer. All around you are shelves, not ordinary shelves, but floating ribbons of light that twist and drift through the air. Resting upon them are glowing spheres, each one containing what looks like a tiny moving picture. You step closer to one. Inside the sphere, you see a small ship drifting peacefully across calm seas, its sails glowing faintly under starlight. The image shimmers and changes. Now it's a sleeping whale, now a quiet village on a moonlit coast, now a child releasing a lantern into the night. The keeper joins you, her voice hushed with reverence. "These are the sea's dreams," she says. "Every story we've told, every word the lighthouse has read, rises up here at dawn to rest among the stars. They become light, and when travelers look out from their ships at night, these are the stories they see." You stare in awe at the glowing spheres. "So, stars are stories? In a way," she smiles. "The sky keeps them safe until they're needed again. When a dreamer somewhere in the world feels calm enough to listen, one of these lights will fall gently into their heart, and a new story will be born." You walk slowly along the glowing shelves, watching the spheres drift past. Each one emits a faint, musical tone, like a single note in an endless lullaby. Together, the sound forms a slow, ethereal harmony that feels like the night itself is breathing. The keeper touches one of the spheres, and it brightens. "Would you like to hear one?" You nod, and she lifts it gently into her hands. The light spills over her fingers like liquid silver. When she opens her palms, the sphere unfolds into a glowing ribbon that circles both of you, filling the air with faint words and images. Once, the stars looked down at the sea and saw themselves reflected there. They wondered what it would feel like to float instead of burn, to drift instead of shine. So they sent one of their smallest lights down, and it became a firefly. And ever since, the stars have whispered to the fireflies, reminding them where they came from. The ribbon dissolves slowly, scattering into small points of light that drift upward, joining the rest of the sky. You sigh softly. "It's beautiful." The keeper smiles. The sea loves stories of falling stars. They remind it that light always finds its way home. You turn in a slow circle, taking in the glowing constellations of dreams around you. Some drift lazily, some shine brightly, some pulse faintly, as though sleeping. You can almost feel their warmth, gentle and kind, like a memory of something that once made you smile. Do all stories end up here? You ask. The keeper shakes her head gently. Only the ones told with peace. Anger and sorrow dissolve before they can climb this high. The stars only remember kindness. You look up through the glass dome at the endless sweep of night. It seems both infinite and intimate, as if the whole sky has leaned closer to listen. Would you like to leave one of your own? The keeper asks softly. You nod, heart beating slowly, calm as a tide. She hands you a small crystal vial, glowing faintly. Breathe into it, she says. Whatever peace you're carrying, let it become light. You close your eyes and inhale deeply. You think of the sea's slow breathing, of the dreaming garden, of the stories whispered to waves and stars. You think of warmth and calm and home. Then you exhale softly into the vial. It glows brighter, the color of soft dawn. The keeper smiles, takes it gently from your hands, and releases it into the air. It rises slowly, spinning like a drifting lantern, until it joins the other glowing orbs overhead. There, she says, your story's part of the sky now. You watch it for a long time, your light drifting higher, until it becomes indistinguishable from the rest. The harmony of the stars hums softly around you, wrapping you in sound and stillness. The keeper turns to leave, her voice barely above a whisper. Come, the sea will wake soon, and when it does, it will want to hear what the stars dreamed. You take one last look around the luminous chamber, the floating shelves, the drifting lights, the eternal hush of the universe, and follow her down the spiral staircase. Once more, the air grows warmer, heavier, with the scent of salt and morning wind. You descend into the living rhythm of the lighthouse again, the pulse of its light syncing with your heartbeat. As you reach the lower landing, the keeper pauses, listening. Far below, you can hear the first stirrings of the tide. The sea is waking, she murmurs, and it will want its morning story soon. You smile, feeling that gentle pull again, the same one that brought you here in the first place. Somewhere, deep in your chest, the stars are still humming. The light of dawn spills slowly into the lighthouse, soft as breath, gentle as silk. When you wake, the air feels different, alive again, in that subtle way mornings often are near the sea. The horizon is a long ribbon of pale gold, and the tide below is beginning to stir, rolling and whispering against the rocks, like a creature stretching after a deep dream. You dress slowly, still wrapped in the quiet warmth of sleep, and follow the faint sound of movement below. The lighthouse keeper is already awake, of course. She stands at the open door that leads to the outside steps, her shawl fluttering in the early wind. In one hand, she holds a basket filled with shells. In the other, a mug of steaming tea. When she sees you, her face brightens. Good morning, she says softly. The sea's listening again. It's time for the morning story. You join her on the outer steps. The stones are cool under your feet, damp with mist. From here, you can see the whole stretch of ocean, endless and calm, the sun rising like a glowing pearl from the edge of the world. The air is fresh, touched with salt and warmth. Somewhere far off, a gull calls once and then falls silent again. The keeper hands you a shell from her basket, a spiral one, pale and iridescent. Each morning, she explains, I read a story not to the sea but with it. The shells help carry the words. She places her shell against her ear and smiles faintly. It's speaking already, she says. Go on, listen. You hold your shell to your ear. At first, you hear only the familiar hush, the timeless rush of the sea's breath trapped within the shell. But slowly, that sound begins to change. It deepens, softens, becomes something like a whisper. You can't quite make out words, but the tone is unmistakably kind, slow, and thoughtful, as if the sea itself is humming a memory. The keeper watches you carefully. It remembers, she says, the stories we've told, the dreams we've shared. The sea is not only a listener, it is a storyteller too. You lower the shell, awed. It's answering, she nods. It always does, in its own language. Today, we'll let it speak first. The two of you sit on the broad stone steps, the waves glimmering below, the lighthouse shadow stretching long across the rocks. The keeper closes her eyes and begins to hum, a soft, wordless tune that seems to blend perfectly with the rhythm of the waves. The sea answers, wave after wave, each crest falling in perfect time with her melody. You can feel it, the conversation happening in sound, in motion, in the deep unspoken language of calm. After a while, she stops humming and opens her eyes. Now it's your turn, she says. Tell it something gentle, something you'd like it to carry for you. You think for a moment. The world feels vast and intimate. All at once the sea before you, the lighthouse behind, the air filled with gold light and salt. You take a deep breath and begin to speak softly, as if not to disturb the waves. Once, there was a tide that wanted to learn how to listen. It tried to chase every sound at once, the wind, the gulls, the voices of boats, but the noise was too great, and it grew restless. So one day, it decided to be still. It listened only to the small things, the sound of shells clicking together, the whisper of sand shifting beneath the water. And slowly, it realized that listening didn't mean hearing everything. It meant hearing clearly. And from that day on, the tide listened not with its ears, but with its heart. Your voice fades into the rhythm of the waves. The sea, as if in response, rolls forward gently, just enough to brush the bottom steps with foam. The keeper smiles. Ah, she murmurs, it liked that. You look down, and indeed, the foam lingers longer than usual. It sparkles faintly, like it's holding on to your words before pulling them back into the water. The keeper lifts her shell again. Listen, she says. You hold yours to your ear once more, and this time you hear it clearly, the sound of your own voice echoed back. Not exactly the same, but softer, slower, as though the sea is repeating your story in its own rhythm. You smile. It's learning. It always is, the keeper replies. Every story teaches the sea something new. It learns kindness, patience, peace, and every listener who joins it leaves a little more calm behind. She stands, brushing salt from her skirt. Come, she says. The tide will rise soon. When it does, the stories of the morning sink into the deep where the fish and the coral listen. It's their turn now. You follow her down the winding path that leads to the edge of the rocks. Here, the water glimmers in wide, rippling sheets, clear enough to see the smooth pebbles beneath. Tiny fish dart between them, their scales catching the light like shards of silver. The keeper kneels, places her shell gently on the surface, and lets it drift. Every morning, she says, we return what we hear. The shells remember the sound of the sea, and the sea remembers the sound of us. That's how the cycle continues. You release your shell beside hers, The two spiral slowly together, turning and gliding away on the tide until they vanish beneath the sunlight. The keeper straightens, her eyes bright with quiet pride. "And now," she says, "the sea knows your voice. Wherever you go, it will remember it." You stand beside her in silence. The waves roll softly, the wind hums faintly in your ears, and the sunlight scatters across the water in bright, gentle shards. For a while, you feel something that's hard to name. Not joy, exactly, and not sadness. Something deeper, quieter, a sense of belonging to a rhythm older than yourself. Later that morning, back inside the lighthouse, the keeper prepares another pot of tea. The scent of herbs fills the room again, mingling with the salty air. She sets 2 cups on the round table and sits across from you. "The sea is calm today," she says. "It's listening more deeply than usual. You must have told it something it needed to hear." You smile. "I think maybe it just needed a reminder." She nods, her eyes twinkling. "We all do." You sip your tea, the warmth spreading slowly through you. The lighthouse hums faintly around you, steady, gentle, content. The keeper looks toward the window, where the sea glows beneath the noon light. "Every wave you hear from now on," she says softly, "will carry a word you once spoke. The tide will repeat it to other shores, to drifting sailors, to creatures beneath the deep. That's the way of peaceful things. They travel quietly, and they never really end." You sit together in silence for a long time, the sound of the ocean filling every space where words might have gone. The light through the window shifts slowly, dancing over the bookshelves, glinting off the brass fittings of the lantern above. And then the keeper says, almost to herself, "Tonight, the sea will give something back. It always does." After it listens, you turn to her, curious. "What will it give?" She smiles faintly. "A new story, one born not from us, but from the sea itself. You'll see." Her words linger in your mind, long after the conversation ends, and as the afternoon drifts toward evening once more, you begin to feel it too, a quiet stirring beneath the waves, as if the sea is gathering its thoughts, ready to speak. By the time evening folds itself over the horizon, the air around the lighthouse feels charged, not with storm or wind, but with expectation. The sun has sunk into a pale orange haze, leaving behind a wide band of violet and silver. The sea lies calm but not quiet. It moves with purpose now, each wave rolling, as though carrying something unseen beneath its surface, something that has been waiting for this night. You and the lighthouse keeper stand together by the open door, watching the slow rhythm of the tide. The light from the lanterns glows golden against the rising dusk. "It's ready," she says softly. "The sea has something to say tonight." You look out across the water. "How will we hear it?" She smiles. "You'll know. The sea never shouts, it sings." Together, you walk down to the rocks where you released the shells that morning. The air is cool, and each step along the mossy stones feels like stepping into a memory. The lighthouse beam sweeps over you every few seconds, soft and protective, painting your shadows across the sea. The keeper carries her old lantern, but she doesn't light it this time. "No flame tonight," she says. "The sea prefers the dark when it speaks." You reach the water's edge, just as the last rim of sunlight disappears. The tide is higher now, lapping at your ankles. The sea is dark but shimmering, as if lit from below by something alive. For a long while, you simply listen. The world is silent, except for the steady hiss of water and the low heartbeat of the waves. Then, very slowly, another sound begins to emerge. It starts as a hum, low, deep, rising from beneath the water. It vibrates through the rocks, through your feet, up into your chest. The sound grows clearer, not louder, like a voice forming out of silence. The lighthouse keeper closes her eyes. "That's it," she whispers. "It's speaking." You stand perfectly still. The hum shifts into melody, soft and wordless, but somehow full of meaning. It sounds like the hush of wind through reeds, the sigh of sand as the tide pulls away, and underneath it, faintly, the rhythm of something that feels like words, not human words, but a language of water and memory. You can almost understand it, not in your mind, but in your heart. It tells you of things that have no sharp edges, of the first ripple that ever touched the shore, of sunlight filtering through deep waves, of whale songs echoing through the dark like dreams. It tells you about quietness, about patience, about the way peace moves slowly, but always forward. The keeper opens her eyes, and they shine with tears. "It's thanking us," she murmurs. "Thanking you. For what?" you ask softly. "For listening." You both stay like that for a long time, listening to the sea's story unfold. The light from the lighthouse turns lazily above, brushing the water in gold. Each time the beam passes, the waves shimmer brighter, as though the sea itself is reflecting the story it's telling. Then, just as gently as it began, the song begins to fade. The water calms, the hum lowers, until only the familiar rhythm of waves remains. But in the air, something lingers, a resonance. The silence isn't empty anymore. It hums with everything you've just heard, every soft vibration of meaning still echoing faintly inside you. The keeper places a hand on your shoulder. "You've heard what very few ever do," she says quietly. "The sea's own lullaby. It only sings when it feels understood. You can't find words, so you just nod. The feeling in your chest is too large for speaking." Later, back inside the lighthouse, the keeper sets 2 mugs of tea on the round table. The air is filled again with the smell of salt and honey. Outside, the waves glow faintly, carrying small pulses of blue light along their crests, tiny bioluminescent sparks that mirror the stars above. You sip your tea, still half lost in thought. "Do you think it does this often?" She shakes her head gently. "Only when it has something to say, and usually it takes years, sometimes decades." You glance toward the sea. "Why now then?" The keeper meets your gaze, her smile quiet and knowing. "Because someone listened differently this time. You didn't ask it for answers. You just stayed." Her words settle into you like warmth spreading through cool air. You look again toward the waves, where faint lines of light drift outward from the shore. They pulse, slowly, like heartbeats fading into the horizon. "What will it do with the story?" you ask. "It will travel," she says, "across the deep. The whales will hear it, and they'll hum it back to the stars. The tide will hum it to the sand, and one day it will wash ashore, somewhere else perhaps, as a whisper in another lighthouse, or a dream in someone's sleep." You nod slowly, so stories never end. "Not when they're peaceful," she says. The keeper rises and moves to the large window overlooking the sea. The lighthouse light turns across her face, soft and golden. That's why this lighthouse was built, to listen, not to warn, to keep the sea company through its endless dreaming. You stand beside her. Together, you watch as the horizon deepens into indigo. The beam of the lantern stretches far into the night, sweeping over the glowing waves, reaching out like a touch across the water. The sea is quiet again, but somehow it feels fuller. Each wave that breaks against the rocks sounds softer, more deliberate, It's as though the sea is repeating what it said earlier, only now, in lullaby form. You feel it then, the slow peace that comes from knowing you are part of something endless, not small, not forgotten, but woven gently into a story that keeps circling the world. The keeper turns to you. You should rest now, she says softly. Tomorrow we'll bring the sea's dreams ashore, and we'll read them together. You nod, though you linger at the window for a moment longer. The stars above and the glowing waves below seem to mirror one another again, forming a single endless sky. You breathe deeply, letting the rhythm of the tide fill your lungs. The air is cool, the sound steady, the peace unbroken. When you finally lie down to sleep, you can still hear it faintly, the sea's voice, whispering through the walls of the lighthouse, humming to itself as if reciting a bedtime story. You close your eyes, and the last thing you feel before you drift away is the soft, steady heartbeat of the sea. Slow, deep, eternal. Morning comes softly again, as it always does here. The light enters not as a command, but as an invitation. It slides across the floorboards, warming the wooden walls, filling the room with a glow like honey poured over glass. When you wake, the lighthouse feels unusually still. The air hums faintly, the kind of silence that suggests something gentle is about to happen. The lighthouse keeper is waiting by the window. Her shawl is woven today from pale gray wool, soft as sea mist. On the table before her sits a small wooden crate filled with empty glass bottles. Some are tall and slender, others short and round. Each one gleams faintly, catching the morning light in its curved sides. "Good morning," she says, her voice warm but hushed. "The sea has dreamed again." You blink sleepily. "Dreamed?" She nods and gestures for you to come closer. Every time the sea tells its story, it dreams afterward. The dreams rise to the surface as mist, then condense into light. By dawn, that light drifts ashore. You peer into the crate. The bottles seem ordinary until you notice a faint shimmer deep inside each one, like sunlight trapped underwater. The keeper lifts one bottle gently, holding it up to the window. Inside, a small swirl of color moves slowly, glowing blue and gold. "These," she says softly, "are the bottled dreams of the sea." You stare in quiet awe. "They're beautiful." "They are," she agrees. Each one holds a single moment the sea dreamed, a sound, a memory, a feeling. Some contain laughter from waves breaking against cliffs. Others hold the hush of a midnight tide. But all of them are fragments of peace. You reach out carefully, and she nods permission. The glass is cool against your skin, and the glow inside responds to your touch, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. "What do you do with them?" you ask. "We return them," she says, "but not all at once. Each day, the lighthouse sends one dream back to the sky, so the stars can learn what the sea has felt." You look out the window. The sea is calm again, the horizon shimmering faintly. A few lazy gulls circle overhead, their cries distant and musical. "Would you like to help me release one?" she asks. You nod. "Yes, please." The two of you climb the spiral staircase together. Each step creaks softly beneath your feet, echoing faintly up the tower. The crate of bottles clinks lightly in the keeper's hands, the glass catching slivers of light as you ascend. When you reach the lantern room, the air feels different, cool and electric, filled with a golden hum. The great lantern in the center spins slowly, its light sweeping out across the water in wide, gentle arcs. The keeper sets the crate down and selects one bottle. This one glows faintly turquoise, with tiny flecks of silver drifting inside like snowflakes suspended in water. She holds it carefully, both palms open. This one, she says softly, is the sea's dream of laughter, the sound of the waves chasing each other. It's one of my favorites. You smile. How do we release it? She nods toward a small hatch near the glass wall. Open that. You kneel, unlatching the small window. A cool breeze rushes in immediately, carrying the scent of salt and faraway rain. The horizon stretches endlessly before you, the sky still pale and new. The keeper leans forward, holding the glowing bottle between her hands. When the dream is ready, she says, it knows where to go. She opens the bottle. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the light inside stirs first a slow swirl, then a small wisp of luminous mist rising from the mouth of the bottle. It floats upward like a breath, unfurling into the air, shimmering and expanding. The mist drifts toward the open window. When it touches the morning light, it flashes softly, scattering into thousands of tiny specks of gold and blue. They lift into the sky, rising higher and higher until they vanish completely into the clouds. You watch in wonder. It's gone, you whisper. The keeper shakes her head gently. Not gone, shared. She places the empty bottle aside, smiling faintly. That's how the lighthouse sends gratitude to the sky. Every dream the sea gives us, we return as light. It keeps the balance. You stand beside her in the warm glow of the lantern, watching the sunlight stream through the window. Far out at sea, a faint glimmer appears like a new star reflecting on the water's surface. That's where it landed, she murmurs. When the wind slows tonight, we'll see it rise again. The rest of the day passes in the lighthouse's easy rhythm. You help polish the glass of the lantern, stack books in the reading room, and feed the tiny flock of seabirds that nest on the balcony outside. The keeper hums softly as she works, the same melody you've come to recognize, a lullaby for the sea. Every now and then, you both pause to listen. The waves sigh below, calm and steady. Occasionally, you think you hear faint laughter in the wind, like echoes from the bottle's released dream, drifting back to visit. In the afternoon, the keeper prepares another pot of tea. This one is fragrant with herbs and citrus peel, bright and comforting. As you sip, she opens one of the lighthouse's old logbooks, a massive volume bound in salt-stained leather. Inside are hundreds of entries, written in careful script. Each one describes a day, a tide, or a dream released from the sea. She traces one page with her finger and smiles. I've written something like this every day since I arrived. Someday, when I'm gone, the next keeper will read these pages and know how to listen. You glance up. Do you think someone new will come soon? Her eyes soften. Lighthouses always call when they're ready for a new listener. Maybe one day it will call for you. The thought settles quietly in your heart. You don't answer, just watch as the beam of light above sweeps gently through the window, across the teacups, across her face, across yours. As evening comes, the two of you climb once more to the lantern room. The air is golden again, the horizon awash in pink and silver. You look out, and there far on the edge of the sea you see it, a faint flicker of turquoise light, rising slowly into the sky. The keeper smiles. The sea's laughter has found its way home. You stand together in silence, watching it rise higher until it fades into a new star, bright and clear above the horizon. The lighthouse hums softly around you, its light joining the starlight, its rhythm blending with the heartbeat of the sea. The keeper closes her eyes and whispers, "Another story complete." You whisper back, "And another beginning." She smiles, eyes still closed. "Yes, that's the secret of this place. The endings are just stories that learned how to rest." Outside, the waves lap gently at the rocks, and far above, the new star gleams a little brighter than the rest, as if still remembering the sound of laughter carried from the sea. You breathe in deeply, the scent of salt and light filling your lungs, and feel, once again, that you are exactly where you are meant to be, between the sky and the sea, between the story and the dream. The next day begins with the gentlest kind of rain, not a storm, not a downpour, just a fine mist that drifts in from the horizon, wrapping the lighthouse in a cool silver veil. The air smells clean, like salt and stone and wet earth. The waves below roll lazily, soft and unhurried, as though they too are enjoying the quiet. When you wake, you can hear the rain tapping lightly against the window, soft, rhythmic, almost like fingertips brushing glass. It's the kind of morning that asks you to move slowly, to breathe deeply, to stay in the calm between moments. You find the lighthouse keeper in the kitchen, standing by the stove. The teapot hums faintly, and the room glows golden from the lamps lit against the grey light outside. She's stirring something in a pot oat porridge again, but this time you notice she's added thin curls of candied orange peel. The scent fills the air, sweet and comforting. She glances up and smiles. "Ah, you're awake. Good timing. The sea's dreaming again, but today the sky is listening too." You tilt your head. The sky listens? She nods, her silver hair tucked loosely behind her shoulders. It does. When the rain comes, every drop carries a whisper from the sea back to the clouds. Tonight, they'll return what they've heard. You take a seat, the wooden chair creaking softly. "Return?" She smiles, serving you a bowl of warm porridge. "You'll see. It's the night of the returning lights." The day passes in its own slow rhythm. The rain continues, but softly, never harsh, never loud. It beads along the windows, forming tiny rivers that trace the curved glass. Outside, the world looks washed and muted, tones of slate blue, sea green, and pearl grey blending into one another, until it's hard to tell where the sky ends and the sea begins. You and the keeper spend the afternoon in the reading room. The lighthouse glows from within, like a lantern floating in fog. The books on the shelves hum faintly, reacting to the moisture in the air, their spines glimmering like wet shells. She hands you one, the star that slept in the ocean. Its cover is faded, the title etched in silver script. "A good choice for a rainy day," she says softly. You read aloud for a while. The story tells of a single star that fell into the ocean and couldn't find its way home until the tides learned how to lift it gently back to the sky. The words flow easily, calm and kind, like the sea itself is listening from below. When you finish, the keeper closes the book with a satisfied sigh. "The sea likes that one," she says. "It always listens a little closer when we read about light finding its way home." You smile. "Like last night." "Exactly." She looks toward the window, where the rain still falls steady and fine. "But tonight," she adds, "the sky will speak too." By evening, the mist has thinned to a silvery haze. The air feels charged again, the same way it did the night the sea told its story. The lighthouse hums a little louder, its rhythm deepening in response to the energy outside. The keeper lights the lanterns one by one. Their glow flickers through the mist, soft and golden, casting warm halos against the cool air. When everything is ready, she wraps her shawl tighter and turns to you. "Come," she says. "We'll go to the balcony. The lights will begin soon." The world outside feels otherworldly. The fog has lifted just enough to reveal the line of the sea. The horizon glows faintly with the last blush of sunset rose, violet, then deep blue. The rain has slowed to a whisper, barely brushing your skin. The air is cold, but not unfriendly. You and the keeper stand side by side at the railing. She carries a small glass bowl in her hands, filled with water drawn from the tide below. In it, the faintest spark of light flickers a soft pulse that feels alive. "This," she explains, "is a dream the sea gave us, but when the rain came this morning, it carried its echo to the clouds. Tonight, they'll return it." You look up. The first stars are appearing overhead, but they seem brighter tonight, sharper, more awake. The sky glows faintly with motion, as if something unseen is stirring beyond the clouds. Then, without warning, it begins. The rain starts again, but not as before. Each drop glimmers as it falls, glowing faintly blue, then gold, then white. They don't splash when they land. They shimmer, pause for a heartbeat, and vanish like sparks sinking into the earth. You gasp softly. They're glowing. The keeper smiles. The returning lights. The sky gives the sea's dreams back to us, one by one. You hold out your hands, and a few glowing raindrops land in your palms. They're cool, tingling softly against your skin before fading. Each one seems to leave behind a trace of memory, an image, a feeling, a whisper. You see flashes of the stories you've told together. The island that appeared when the world slept, the tree that grew roots into the stars, the laughing tide, the still sea that learned how to listen, all of them reflected in tiny bursts of light before melting away into warmth. The keeper lifts the bowl of seawater toward the sky. The glowing rain gathers above it, falling into the water without a sound. Each drop sends ripples of light spreading outward, until the entire bowl glows like a captured piece of the moon. When it's full, she lowers it carefully, the water pulsing faintly in her hands. "The sea will want this back," she says. "It's how it remembers what it dreamed." You follow her down the narrow staircase to the rocks below, the bowl of glowing water lighting the way. The waves are calm, rolling in gentle curves beneath the starlight. Kneeling, the keeper tips the bowl toward the sea. The glowing water flows out in a slow, graceful arc, spilling into the tide. As it touches the surface, the light spreads, tracing soft paths along the waves. For a few moments, the entire shoreline glows blue and white, like liquid stars scattered across the water. The effect is breathtaking. The sea seems to breathe light, inhaling and exhaling calm. The keeper closes her eyes and whispers something in a language you don't recognize, something old and soft and full of gratitude. Then she stands and looks at you. "Now it's your turn," she says. You kneel where she did, cupping your hands to the sea. The glowing foam kisses your palms. You close your eyes and whisper something of your own. A thank you, a wish, a quiet promise. You don't think the sea needs to understand words. It understands feeling. When you open your eyes again, the glow has begun to fade, sinking slowly into the dark water until all that remains is the reflection of the stars above. The keeper smiles. "The sea has taken it back," she says. "It will dream of it tonight." Back inside the lighthouse, You both sit for a while in the warm glow of the reading room. The rain outside has stopped completely. The only sound is the slow turning of the lantern above and the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. The keeper pours 2 cups of chamomile tea. The steam curls upward, fragrant and calm. You sip quietly, letting the warmth spread through your chest. She gazes into her cup for a long time before speaking again. The sea, she says softly, is like us. It gives, it listens, it dreams, it forgets, it remembers, but above all, it always comes back. You nod, smiling. Just like the lights, she looks at you, eyes glimmering, exactly like the lights. Outside, a single bright star shoots across the horizon, leaving a trail of silver light in its wake. You both watch it until it disappears. The keeper sets her cup down and murmurs, "That one carried a story home." And for the rest of the night, the lighthouse hums softly content, peaceful, its beams sweeping across the quiet sea, keeping company with the dreams it helped return. When you awaken the next morning, the world feels hushed, as though the sea itself has tiptoed around the lighthouse so as not to wake you too soon. The light coming through the round window is silver and slow. The horizon is blurred by a soft mist, but the air is gentle, warm in places where sunlight filters through. You can hear the quiet groan of the tide below, a sound that has somehow begun to feel like a greeting. When you go downstairs, the lighthouse keeper is sitting by the window with a book in her lap. Her tea steams quietly beside her, and her expression is one of thoughtfulness, tinged with wonder. She looks up when she hears you. "Good morning," she says softly. "The sea dreamed beautifully last night. It told me about a whale." You take a seat across from her. "A whale?" She nods, eyes still bright with that quiet curiosity that never seems to fade. "Yes, a whale that carried the moon." You smile, charmed. "That sounds like a story." Her lips curve in agreement. "It is. One the sea whispered to me just before dawn. I think it's meant for you." She sets the book aside and opens one of the sea blue journals she keeps on the table. Inside are blank pages, waiting to be filled. The air smells faintly of salt and ink and chamomile. "Would you like to tell it with me?" she asks. You nod. "Yes, please." The keeper dips her quill into a small glass bottle of ink that glimmers faintly like water under moonlight. She writes the title slowly across the first line, "The Whale That Carried the Moon." She looks at you expectantly, then begins in her soft, rhythmic voice. "Once, long ago, when the world was still learning how to dream, the moon slipped from the sky. It fell quietly, landing in the sea with hardly a splash. The stars gasped, the waves blushed silver, and the sea, overwhelmed, held the moon carefully in its arms." You listen, then pick up where she leaves off, the words coming naturally, as if the sea itself were whispering through you. "For many nights, the sea tried to lift the moon back to the sky. It built waves tall enough to touch the stars, but each time they fell back again with a sigh. The sea grew tired and sad, afraid the moon might fade away beneath the water's weight." The keeper smiles faintly. "And that," she continues, "is when the whale arrived. The whale was enormous, calm, and quiet as a mountain asleep. It rose from the deep with eyes as old as tides, its back wide enough to hold the world's sorrow. The sea asked for help, and the whale agreed. She gestures for you to go on, her eyes twinkling like reflections of starlight. You think for a moment, then speak softly. "The whale swam beneath the moon, careful not to disturb its light. With each breath, It lifted the moon higher until it floated just beneath the waves. The sea sighed in relief, and the stars leaned closer to watch. The lighthouse seems to hum along with the rhythm of your words. The light above flickers gently, matching the pace of the story. The keeper writes as you speak, her pen gliding like a ship across calm water. But the whale soon grew tired. The moon was heavier than it looked, so the sea began to sing, to steady the whale's breath, to remind it that light is never too heavy when it's carried with love. Her voice softens. That's what the sea told me. It sang the same song to me last night through the tide, through the wind. You close your eyes and imagine it, the whale moving slowly through the deep, the moon resting upon its back like a glowing pearl, the sea singing softly around them both. You speak again. For 7 nights the whale swam, guided by starlight and the sea's song, and on the 8th night, when the stars began to fade, the whale rose one last time, up, up, through the water, breaking through the surface with the moon balanced gently between its fins. The keeper smiles, and the wind caught the moon, she finishes, and carried it home. You open your eyes. The room feels different now, brighter somehow, though the morning light hasn't changed. The air is filled with stillness, the kind that follows after a beautiful truth has been spoken aloud. The keeper dips her pen and writes the final line, and ever since that night, the whale has wandered the deep, its breath glowing faintly with moonlight. When the sea grows restless, the whale surfaces again, humming softly to remind the tides how to rest. She sets the pen down and exhales. There, she says, now the sea's story is safe. Outside, the clouds begin to part, letting wide shafts of sunlight fall over the water. You and the keeper step out onto the balcony to watch. The surface of the sea glimmers no longer grey, but silver blue, rippling gently like the surface of a dream. The keeper closes her eyes and listens. Can you hear it? You tilt your head. At first, all you hear is the wind. Then beneath it, a low melodic sound, almost like singing. It's deep and distant, echoing through the waves. A whale's song. It rises and falls slowly, vast and tender. The sound fills the air, resonating in your bones. You whisper, awestruck, it's real. The keeper nods, eyes glistening. The sea never dreams alone. His stories ripple outward until they find their truth. The two of you stand in silence for a long while, listening to the whale's song drift through the air, mingling with the heartbeat of the tide. The lighthouse's beam turns slowly above, sweeping gold light across the water, as though bowing to the rhythm. The sound is not lonely. It is deep, patient, eternal, a lullaby for the world itself. That night, when you lie in bed, you can still hear it faintly, the whale's song beneath the hum of the lighthouse, echoing from the far horizon. You close your eyes, and in the gentle dark, the story replays itself behind your eyelids. The whale lifting the moon, the sea singing softly, the stars leaning closer to watch. The last thing you feel before drifting into sleep is that same calm pulse beneath your heart, the slow, steady rhythm of water, light, and story, each one carrying the other home. The next day is impossibly still, not silent but full of that gentle quiet that comes when everything is listening. The air carries the faint hum of distant waves and the smell of salt warmed by sunlight. The sea has calmed completely, lying flat as glass beneath the wide morning sky. You wake to the golden light of dawn filtering through your window. It paints the room in a wash of warmth and peace. Somewhere below, You hear the soft clink of teacups and the slow, even footsteps of the lighthouse keeper moving through her morning routine. You smile, feeling that familiar pool of contentment that has become the rhythm of your days here. But when you come downstairs, you find the keeper standing by the window, still and thoughtful. Her shawl is folded neatly on the table beside her. The teapot steams quietly between two mugs, and the book of sea blue leather, the one filled with stories, lies open to a blank page. She turns to you with a soft smile. "Good morning," she says, though her voice carries a different tone today. "The sea's quiet, isn't it? Almost too quiet." You nod, glancing out the window. The ocean is endless and smooth, its color a deep, glowing blue. The beam from the lantern above sweeps lazily across it, though the day is already bright. "What's wrong?" you ask gently. The keeper shakes her head. "Nothing wrong," she says. "Only change. The tide told me something last night. It said it's time." You feel your breath catch slightly. Time for what? Her eyes crinkle with that same serene kindness you've known since the moment you arrived. "For me to rest," she says softly, "and for the lighthouse to choose a new keeper." You stare at her, unable to speak for a moment. "But you can't mean—" She smiles, touching your hand gently. "Don't worry. Lighthouses don't let go of those who love them. They only ask us to pass the light along." She pours the tea, the simple movement, grounding you both. "Every few decades," she continues, "the sea whispers to the lighthouse that it's time. The stories need new voices, new listeners, new hearts. The sea and the light, they always know who's ready." You look down at the steaming cup between your palms. "And it chose me?" The keeper's gaze softens, and she nods. "It did. The night the sea sang, it was calling to you. You listened, not with your ears, but with your calm. That's what the sea loves most of all. You're quiet for a long while. The idea feels too large, too luminous to hold. The thought of the lighthouse's endless hum, of the sea speaking in dreams, settling into your keeping, fills you with awe and a little ache. "But what will happen to you?" you ask at last. She smiles faintly. "The same thing that happens to all keepers when their stories are done. We become part of the sea's dreaming." Her eyes drift to the horizon. "I'll sleep in the water's memory. And sometimes, on calm nights, you might hear my song in the tide, just as I still hear the voices of the keepers who came before me." You can't tell if what she's saying is literal or poetic, but maybe, here, it's the same thing. That afternoon, the two of you climb to the lantern room, one last time together. The light above burns gently, as if sensing the moment. The sea below glimmers with the same still, endless calm. The keeper moves slowly, touching the brass railing, the glass, the beam lever, each gesture filled with affection. "Every keeper adds something to the light," she says. "A warmth, a rhythm, a sound. Mine hums low and steady, like a lullaby. Yours, I think, will shine softer like starlight caught in motion." You watch her carefully, memorizing the way her silver hair catches the glow, the steady calm of her presence. Finally, she reaches for the small brass switch at the lantern's base. "Tonight, when the moon rises, the lighthouse will hum differently. That will be its way of saying the light has changed hands." She looks at you and smiles. "And I'll stay until the first glow of dawn to make sure the sea knows your voice." That evening, as the sun sets, the two of you sit together on the balcony, wrapped in blankets. The horizon glows soft in gold, fading into shades of lavender and rose. The keeper begins to hum low and wordless, the same song you've heard her sing every night. But now you realize it isn't just a lullaby, it's a call, a farewell woven into melody. You close your eyes and listen. The waves answer, their rhythm matching her voice. The light above hums softly in tune, casting golden ripples across the surface of the water. And then you join her. Your voice trembles at first, quiet and unsure, but as the melody fills the air, something deeper takes over. You find the rhythm, the pitch, the breath, the sound that feels like yours. The keeper glances at you, her eyes bright with quiet pride. Yes, she whispers between verses. That's it. That's the sound the lighthouse was waiting for. Together, your voices rise and fall, weaving with the sea's murmuring. The song fills the air, sweeping out across the water, until the whole horizon seems to breathe in rhythm with it. When the final note fades, the world is utterly still. The light of the lantern pauses, then pulses once bright and slow, before settling into a new rhythm. Your rhythm, the keeper exhales softly, a look of contentment washing over her face. It's done, she murmurs. The light knows you now. You both sit quietly, watching the first stars appear in the deepening sky. The air feels timeless, suspended between what has ended and what has just begun. She closes her eyes and whispers, "When the tide comes in, I'll follow it home." You reach for her hand, and she squeezes yours gently. Her skin feels warm and steady, pulsing faintly with the same rhythm as the light above. "Will I see you again?" you ask. Her voice is soft, carried by the breeze. "Every night the sea listens, I'll be there. Every time you tell it a story, I'll hear it." The moon rises, pale and full, casting silver paths across the water. The keeper's hand grows lighter in yours, the warmth fading, but not the comfort. She looks at you one last time, smiling. "Keep the sea company," she whispers. It never asks for much, only a listener. The next wave breaks gently against the rocks below, glowing faintly, and when you look back, she is gone. Only her shawl remains, folded neatly beside you, still faintly warm, still smelling of salt and tea. The lighthouse hums softly in the night. The beam turns, steady and slow, sweeping its new rhythm across the sea, and far below, the waves whisper their endless stories, each one carrying a trace of her song. You stand at the window, hand on the cool glass, and feel the hum of the light pulsing gently beneath your palm. It feels alive, patient, endless. The sea sighs, and the lighthouse answers. Together, they breathe in time, and you, the new keeper, breathe with them. The first morning of your keeping comes quietly, almost reverently. The sky is pale gold and lavender, the color of half-remembered dreams. The sea below breathes in long, slow waves, each one washing gently against the rocks, as though testing your new rhythm, listening, learning. The air smells of mist and warm sunlight, of salt and something faintly sweet, like the ghost of chamomile tea. You find the shawl the keeper left behind draped over the back of the chair, folded with care. When you lift it, it still carries her scent, sea lavender and old books, and something endlessly calm. You drape it over your shoulders, and for a moment, you almost hear her voice again. "Keep the sea company." The lighthouse feels both familiar and new. You move through it slowly, touching the wood, the brass, the warm stones worn smooth beneath your fingers. The rooms hum softly, adjusting to you, the sound of a living place, welcoming a new heartbeat. Down in the kitchen, the teapot hums as if it already knew you'd want tea. In the reading room, the shelves sigh faintly as though waking from dreams. The books shimmer under the morning light, and when you run a hand across their spines, you swear one of them hums softly back. You take a cup of tea and climb the spiral stairs to the lantern room. The beam is steady, slow, gentle, the same pulse that matched your voice last night. Outside, the sea stretches endlessly, glowing with morning light. You stand there for a long time, watching the horizon. You feel no sadness, only peace, deep and wide as the tide itself. After breakfast, you wander down to the dreaming garden. The flowers there are heavy with dew. The vine that grew from your whispered story, your memory of quiet rain, has climbed higher since you last saw it, its leaves glittering faintly like wet emeralds. You kneel beside it and whisper softly, "Good morning." The leaves stir. The air in the garden feels different now. The hum of the sea filters up through the floor, mingling with the faint songs of petals and roots. It's a kind of music without melody, life breathing, earth dreaming, water remembering. For a long time, you simply sit there, listening. Then, from somewhere deep below, you hear it, a soft voice rising from the tide. It's the sea, whispering again, slow, low, patient. It doesn't sound like words, yet you understand. It's telling you something gentle, something true. It remembers. It remembers the keeper. It remembers her stories. And it remembers you. As the day passes, you find your rhythm without trying. You polish the lantern glass, straighten the books, feed the gulls that come to perch on the balcony rail. You hum, without thinking, the same tune the keeper once did. And when afternoon drifts into evening, you prepare for your first story. You light the lamps one by one, the golden glow chasing shadows into corners. The scent of sea lavender fills the air. You set a cup of tea by the round window, the steam curling upward like a blessing. Then you walk to the chest in the reading room, the one filled with the books the sea had written. You open it, and the soft blue light spills out, painting your hands in color. You reach for the book that hums the loudest. It's bound in pale silver leather, its title written in letters that shimmer like moonlight on waves, The Lighthouse That Reads to the Sea. You smile. "Ah," you whisper, "so this is tonight's story." You carry it to the round table, open it carefully, and begin to read aloud. Your voice fills the lighthouse, blending with the hum of the lantern. The beam above begins to turn in rhythm, pulsing gently with every line. The words flow like waves, soft, slow, endless. There once was a lighthouse, built not to warn ships, but to keep the sea from feeling lonely. Each night, it read stories to the waves, its light carrying words across the dark water to the places where the sea could not go. As you read, the sound of the waves below deepens. The ocean's breath moves in time with your sentences, each swell echoing your rhythm. The sea listened, as it always did. Sometimes it hummed back. Sometimes it sent gifts, dreams in bottles, stars in shells, whales who carried the moon. You pause for a moment. The air feels thick with warmth and light. The reflection of the moon ripples faintly on the surface of the water below. And one day, when the lighthouse keeper grew tired, The sea whispered to the next listener, asking them to keep reading, to keep the stories alive. Your voice falters briefly, but you smile and keep reading. And so the lighthouse never stopped. It read to the sea through the calm and the storms, through centuries and silences, until the waves themselves learned to dream. The last line comes out softer than the rest, almost like a lullaby. When you close the book, the silence that follows is vast and tender. Outside, the sea glows faintly gold. The tide laps against the rocks like a heartbeat, slow and sure. You take a deep breath, letting it all sink in. The lighthouse hums softly in reply, and somewhere deep below, you hear the faintest echo, a familiar voice humming along with the tide, the keeper's song. Hours later, you step out onto the balcony. The stars are wide and bright above, the kind of clear sky that seems to stretch forever. The lighthouse beam sweeps gently across the ocean, gold meeting silver, light meeting reflection. For the first time, you understand what it means to belong to the rhythm of something larger than yourself, to be not separate from the story, but part of its telling. The sea whispers softly beneath you, the light hums, the night breathes, and you, the keeper, begin to read again. Once upon a time, you say to the sea, there was a lighthouse that read bedtime stories to the waves. The sea answers with a long, contented sigh. The stars flicker brighter for a heartbeat, and the world settles once more into its endless, peaceful rhythm, a rhythm that sounds unmistakably like sleep.